put into allocation status. So that's good. We have paid out almost 200,000 in ECP payments for 2024, but that is also the result of a severe storm before the flooding. So that 200,000 is from I think it was a January 2024 windstorm. And those are all, I think those are all but one of those, I think, is Franklin County Sugar Maker. The ELAP program, so it's Emergency Assistance for Livestock, Honeybees, and Farm-Raised Fish. We've paid out $750,000 in 23 and another $6,000 in 24. The NAP, the infamous NAP program, Non-Insured Crop Disaster Assistance Program, has paid out nearly $600,000 for 2023 and another $29,000 for 2024. And then finally, the Livestock Indemnity Program has paid out $33,000 on 2023 losses. I will say the NAP program is going to get a little shot in the arm as a result of this program that John just mentioned, which we're calling MASK, because part of the calculation for a producer's chosen year to apply for the programmatic payments, it considers disaster payments under NAP that were made for that particular year. So if there are outstanding claims that still need to be paid for 23, our county offices have just put those on super duper high priority to get them paid out. So that's where we stand.
So Eileen, I am just one quick question from an observation here. I noticed that there are differences between what was paid for the 2023, for example, the ECP, what the amount that was paid out in 23 versus 24, significant gap there. Do you anticipate that is going to climb, or are there going to be more claims submitted or applicants approved? 1.7 million versus 199,000 is a significant gap. So I'm just curious whether you anticipate that this is going to change for 24.
Yeah, so I will say, that Winter Storm Elliott number really skews our 2023. That was a humongous storm that I think Franklin County alone had 82 applications that they've paid out, and Chittenden County is still trying to finish up their payments on that disaster, and I think they had 50 some odd applicants. So those are really, really, really big application numbers and a big payout. By comparison, our 2023 flood numbers, not nearly as many applicants, and some with relatively smaller amounts of damage, not to minimize the damage on someone's farm, but in terms of the costs incurred to get the damages fixed, and there, in many cases, there was a lot less than what a sugar maker faces to clean up a bunch of downed trees. For 2024, yes, I absolutely anticipate more payments. But remember that we can't pay unless the work has been done. So in many cases, that 2024 work hasn't even been completed yet, but the applications are in the pipeline. And our newer ECP system has streamlined things a little bit, as well as assistance, as Travis said, from NRCS in getting site visits and needs determinations done. So shorter answer to your question, Roy, yes. The 2024 payments will go up. I don't think they're going to hit 1.7 million by any stretch of the imagination. I would actually be shocked if they reached a million.
Okay. So the other thing that I feel was interesting looking at your numbers here is the amount of NAP in 23. I know it's 500,000, but I compared to the ECP in 23, I thought it would have been more. I was curious about that. You don't have to say anything. I mean, anybody who has any insight into how insurance or the non-insured crop disaster program works, and can make a comment on that. I really thought that that would have been much, much higher.
As I said, they are still paying that out. I don't know. It's not my program, so I don't have a real good pulse on it.
Do you mean they're
But I,
paying that out still for 23, for the 23 claims?
yes,
20
we're still paying that out,
Okay.
still
Okay.
processing claims.
Welcome to the world of federal bureaucracy. And it's not I'm hasten to say it is, the staff are working full blast. It's one of my frustrations of 3 years of work in Fed government that, yeah, there's a lot of I's that need to be dotted and T's that need to be crossed. And it just takes time. I think these numbers, will change substantially or significantly, but they will change, in the next 2 to 6 months. It is bad that, yeah, we're still paying out in 2023, but it is also a good thing that we are still paying out. We haven't, it's just our program is very slow.
Okay. All right, Jill, and then Nina.
This is a national policy question. I gather that the current version of the US budget that's working its way through Congress after failed negotiations provides less economic assistance to farmers. Are you guys, John, probably you who has to answer this one. Do you have any information about this or any idea what the impacts would be for Vermont? Or is it just too soon to say?
I'm hesitating, not because I have some secret information that I'm debating whether to tell you, because I don't.
Okay,
we
yeah.
we at USDA, what we've been told is we are all a little bit in the dark because what happens on the Hill, as we know, does not seem to take reality into account. We all know that the next administration has talked about incredible cuts to everything. What that means, nobody knows. We have a continuing resolution that expires this Friday. The indications have been that it will be extended, that there will not be a shutdown, but who knows? We won't know till midnight Friday. But the indications are the CR will be extended into the new Congress. The Republicans have, that's what they want to do. Because when they control the levers of power, but as somebody pointed out on the radio yesterday, we all know that there's a group of Republicans in Congress who pretty much want to say no to any spending of any kind whatsoever. And so the Republicans may have some fun trying to put together a majority, and they may have some fun trying to do it without Democratic input. So, Jill, it's all a big, it's all up in the air.
A big question mark at the moment. Sorry to even ask. I just thought if you had.
No, it's. I mean, I know they're debating a disaster relief bill right now. I haven't read where that is right this second, but that one has significant Republican support because, you know, a lot of Republican states got really hammered by Helene and others.
Mhm.
You know, I have mentioned several times that I have pushed ever since 2023. Speaking of how slow payments can be, I have pushed for a feed or forage relief purchasing reimbursement program. I keep getting told that 400 million has been assigned to this. It's to cover 19 states. It's not 400 million for Vermont. And they're just finalizing, you know, after what is it, 18, 20 months from 2023, they're just kind of finalizing the last steps, but they're trying to see if it can be included in this disaster relief bill and not be a draw on the CCC. But we'll see. I hope it comes to pass. And
That would be great. I know the agency did just a teeny bit of that
I
after
would.
Irene. You can see that.
Yeah. Oh, you know, and I know how
Um,
difficult it will be for some farmers because I know already, you know, some of them don't have invoices for what they bought, you know, because farmers are not often good at getting invoices from their neighbors or whatever. But anyway, we won't get into how we're going to administer it, but hopefully it's going to happen because I've just last week I was assured again, and I've become such a, well, not a thorn in their side, but I've been persistent that now they keep telling me in national meetings, they call me out and say, yeah, we're going to do that for John Ross. So hopefully they are.
All right. Okay. Let's go to Nina.
Thanks, Eileen. Just a couple of quick clarifying questions. It sounds like ECP 2024, the applicants are continuing to be reviewed. My question is whether ECP 2024 related to the flooding is still open for applications.
Oh yeah, great question. Yeah, let me pull up that spreadsheet. I won't bore you with actually showing it to you, but
The follow-up, Eileen, just to kind of lead you through it, is whether NAP 2024 applicants and approved applicants is also likely to increase as process sort of requests continue.
Yes, we think so. We have ECP for the July 2024 flooding in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 counties right now is all still open. It's open anywhere from well, let's see, they just asked for an extension, so that's going to go into January, about January 21st, January 31st. We have one county, Lamoille, is open until February 14th. It all depends on these sign-up periods are all dependent on when a county started its sign up, when they asked for the program to be implemented. Some of our counties were a little bit slower getting those requests in. So yeah, all the counties that are offering ECP for 2024 flood, the application period is still open, so we can still possibly get applications. Obviously, with this new mask program, our county offices are as if they hadn't been slugged around and beat up enough. National debuted this program with literally like 48 hours notice and an application deadline of January 8th. So everything else in the county office is not happening.
Okay. All right. Before I go to Bill's question or thoughts, Eileen, is this information to any degree shareable with me and Nicole? I know we're going to be asked this question in maybe January, February when we go back to Across the Fence for an update.
Yep. Yeah, I'll put it in a prettier form and get it out to you guys.
All right. Okay. All right, Bill.
Yeah, I was just wondering, Eileen, looking at this, looking at ECP for 24, it seems like the sort of ratio of applicants to approved applications is pretty low. Is that just because they're still in process, or is there something about the 24 applications that they're not getting approved?
No, it's all about getting them through the process.
Okay, so they're kind of still in the works then. It's not like
Yeah.
something for some reason people. Okay, thank you.
Bill, do you have okay, well, let me do it this way. Nina, let me get back to you for your presentation so that we can make sure that we have that highlighted and give time for that. And then we can go back to updates from others, including from NOFA. If you bring any new updates, Bill, or thoughts in the absence of Grace today.
Yeah, I'm happy to share. I'm filling in kind of in the hot seat for Grace here.
All right, let's hold it until right after Nina.
Sorry. Yeah.
I'll be quick, Bill. Sort of, hopefully. Again, part of my goal and hopes today is just most up-to-date information going into the end of the year. As a reminder, we are not drafting a full recovery task force report related to the July 2024 floods. So just a reminder that there's a whole slew of entities, undergraduate students, researchers, et cetera, who will, rely on the information that we're able to share at this point in time for whole kinds of other stuff over the next few years. So just trying to make sure that we are able to share where things are at across all the programs so that folks working in agriculture can better understand the current assistance programs. I drafted some slides. It was actually for one of our regional meetings and went through it, but I don't think we've ever gone over just the quick survey data. So my hope is just briefly, to go over the impact survey data and then where the state of Vermont's programs landed. So as a reminder, many of us were here, but just so we have this documented, it opened July 21st, which is about 11 days after the flood. And the big difference this past year was we worked together within this committee to sort of organize and release a single survey for agricultural producers rather than multiple surveys for multiple entities. And we were able to include language that legal let us get through we were able to share the data from that survey with Ag Task Force members if the farms indicated approval to do so. So I feel like that was a really successful change for us. Haven't heard back from a ton of entities around that, but hopefully it's been a helpful outreach list for getting applicants into all the applicable programs. We did QAQC the survey data. So the raw survey data will show an increased number of responses, but there was certain farms who responded twice or had multiple individuals from their entity respond. So we QAQC the data and our totals are looking at around 86 farms, 3,400 acres impacted, 5.4 million in damages. And the average income loss for flood affected farms is 65,000, which is a bit more than our net farm income in Vermont per the 2022 census, which is about $47,000. So just an interesting tidbit there. There were 52 towns, 10 counties impacted. Just for reference, this was a totally different scale event than July 2023, where we had 264 farms and 27,000 acres impacted and 16 million in damages. So again, 2024 had 5.4 million, 2023 had 16 million. So really different scale of event. For July 24, again, I said we had about 11 counties where we saw impacts, primarily produce, horticulture, and dairy farms, and primarily small farm operations. If you're a vegetable or produce farm and you're farming under 50 acres of annual cropland, you meet that definition of a small farm operation. So, I think that matches in line with what we saw in the field in terms of the folks impacted. A lot of veggie farms. And, just that component of again, floodwaters, once they touch that produce, it's no longer for use or for sale. So that specific contingency of folks affected is unique in nature, one because of the flood impacts to produce, but also because of the size of the farm, right? And what we all know to be true about working with small farms. Most detrimental flood damage or loss was really crops. So again, talking about a lot of small farms, a lot of produce farms losing crops that, rely on insurance. And the second largest category of responses around damage to soils and lands, and followed by loss of crops meant for livestock feed. So I think as we all have experienced and understand at this point in time, that damage to soils and lands is not insurable. So it really relies on assistance programs. Farms often own a lot of land, a lot more than like an individual person. And there's really no methodology under any insurance program to support remediating land to basically be productive once again outside of additional assistance programs, which all our organizations have stood up to some extent to try to meet that need and gap. We did see an improvement. I think it was 70% without insurance in the 2023 flood data. So that dropped to about 57%. Again, we're really talking about a lot of small farms without insurance, and a lot of produce farms. So just sort of zooming in on that contingency to highlight some of the gaps and issues there that we all are very familiar with at this point in time. When we launched a survey and looked at the data, we were really looking at insurance as a general broad term, so including NAP, just to clarify. So insurance, private insurance, and USDA supported risk management. Again, I think we're all aware of, and Eileen just ran over the numbers for NAP. So just acknowledging that, even the folks who did have insurance, right, that 41%, the insurance payments are minimal for produce and horticultural farms specifically enrolled in NAP. What farms indicated as needs for response and support, primarily the largest response was around financial support, followed by roads and culverts. We had some really great discussions here about the gaps in roads, especially around FEMA assistance there, and then stream bank restoration. And there's been a lot of meetings and discussion around stream and river issues in the last few months as folks sort of get a handle on where things are at on their land base. And even when you have minimal damage, that doesn't mean there's not significant work that needs to be done to restore the productivity of any land area. So thinking about debris, rocks, silt deposits. And I think one of the most interesting takeaways from the flood data was the sort of compounding effects of continued reoccurring flood effects. So 70% of the folks affected in the 2024 flood respondents experienced flooding in either the July or December 2023 flood events, which is huge. So just sort of reiterating the importance of understanding that some of these folks are not just dealing with one flood, they're still managing, waiting for payment, trying to recover from potentially 1, 2, or 3 events. We did get some quotation, just like narrative responses as part of the survey that has been very helpful for everyone to reflect on, highlighting the margins that folks are dealing with, how they're responding to reoccurring or compounding events, thinking about where they plant, what their crop rotations might be changing to. Again, just highlighting that it's not just a financial hit. For some folks, it's really like a stress and mental health process to recover and continue to, go to work every day, wake up and keep doing what they're doing. A lot of highlights around dairy farming and just the connection around margins, financial issues there, and how this is just sort of making some of those conversations and issues worse. Definitely a lot of conversations around stream bank restoration, river restoration, and the cost to rebuild versus how many times you can incur that cost and continue to operate. A lot of discussion around land base, primary land base, secondary land base, and just capacity to continue farming or producing what they're producing after flood events. Okay, so what our big initiatives we're releasing the technical assistance toolkit. We'll continue to update this. We did update it recently in September to include a key contacts section. So if folks have newer awareness of different information, we're happy to update this, not when there's a flood happening, because we have a little bit more capacity in those times. The interactive survey data, I'll stick a link in the chat so folks have this, but we basically took all the survey data and we put it into an interactive dashboard so that all of you and your organizations would have access to it. Again, we're not going to be publishing a report, so this is really like a great source for data, and it gives you the ability to interact with that data by county or by type of farm or whatever constituency your organization is working with. And some of the insurance data as well is in there. So the state has a few different programs. We do have existing programs that serve some flood need. I would say, probably in the like 10 to 20 farm space, not a ton. But our CREP staff are really the primary entities who are sort of going out to some of these really deeply flood affected sites and trying to sort of ascertain whether CREP was the right fit or other long-term easement programs. And then we made some changes to our SFS program to just help support some of the gaps around reseeding areas that were flood affected, and really just trying to maintain perennial vegetation in those areas. And that's not eligible expense under ECP. So we wanted to step in and see what we could do to amend our existing program to fill that gap. Sorry, I'm talking really fast. Abby hopped on and Nicole doesn't have a voice, but I'll ask Abby and Nicole if you guys want to share anything about BGAP. You've been a lot closer to it. We had a group of staff from the agency support reviewing applications from BGAP. The deadline to apply was November 15th. And again, BGAP was supporting 30% of net uncovered damages up to $100,000 per location. There were some 2023 flood affected farm opportunities as part of this year's BGAP option. Just to kind of recover this briefly, there's a lot of documentation required, but pretty accessible to most folks who are operating a farm business in general. But it is, different than like a quick, easy financial assistance program, right? They have to input their recently filed tax return and provide supporting documentation for all claimed damages. And that included sort of work that hasn't happened yet. They had to develop quotes for repair, essentially repair estimates. And this is where we landed so far. So the deadline was September 30th for 2023 applications related to the 2023 flood. And then the 2024 flood applications were due November 15th. And then there is a deadline for the incomplete applications that a few farms are still finalizing. Roughly 13.2 million in total physical losses reported. And again, a reminder, our survey data showed about 5.4 million. So really good reason to just remind us all that a survey right after flood is a great way to get some data, but farms really don't have a sense of their losses at that point in time. It takes a long time to develop their repair estimates. So more than double what the survey estimates were in terms of physical loss reported. But 12 of those are not paid yet and 40 are, and the total amount's about 1.5 million. So again, 1.8 out of 13.2 million in total losses. So again, BGAP's restricted to 30%. Abby, I'll point to you because Nicole doesn't have a ton of voice today, but is there anything you want to just share in general about like takeaways from BGAP in your experience, or just general thoughts about how that program went?
Yeah.
Can I just ask Abby if you could talk about the supplemental at all? That would be good too.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't really fully prepared to talk about it, but I would say I think Nina did a nice job kind of summarizing where we are with applications and total demand and need. So all the applications are submitted and under the final review that would happen over the next couple of weeks. We recently met with Central Vermont Economic Development Corporation that has done a lot of the technical assistance to support applicants in submitting their complete or kind of back and forth revised and resubmitted applications. And I think, again, in line with a lot of the sentiment that Nina shared earlier, the flood recovery efforts have been challenging for the industry, and their needs are different than other businesses in some cases. The timing of BGAP was also challenging in that it was still the growing season and then harvest season. So it was difficult for many ag businesses to be able to submit an application by the November 15th deadline and have it be complete and accurate, which again, it creates a unique circumstance for our ag community over other businesses in many cases. It does appear, so going forward, we will continue to review. I think we now have 40 of those 41 of applications paid, and the remainder still under review or being recommended for approval. There will be some applications, you see that there's 5 there that were withdrawn or denied. So there were a few applications that didn't meet the criteria of the program, or even in certain circumstances, both in ag and other business sectors, fraudulent application submissions, which is an interesting kind of experience that we didn't really find in BGAP 1.0 in 2023 following the July 2023 flooding events. So just more scrutiny, more time reviewing applications, and I think just sort of the reality of the desperateness that businesses are experiencing. So going forward, we're looking at kind of like what's the long-term relief recovery kind of program ideas, and how there was also an opportunity for businesses that received an award in 2023, a BGAP award in 2023, but still had unmet costs and losses from that event that were not covered by the award that they received. And so those are applicants that applied for what's called the supplemental award. And we're just learning about some of the details of how the supplemental awards will work, which is, and starting to review those applications after we've reviewed all the 2024 new applications or 2023 new applications that came in. So the quick on the supplemental is that if a business had, let's say, claimed $200,000 in losses in 2023, they received a 30% award in 2023 to cover those losses. And then now they've confirmed that their total losses were, let's say, $180,000, a little bit less than what they projected, but still higher than the 30% award payment that they received. They could and had the opportunity to apply for a supplemental award, which meant that ACCD and the agency will look at that difference between the 30% award they received in 23 and the 180,000 of documented losses through receipts that they need to be able to provide to show this remaining unmet loss and need. And once all those applications have been reviewed for accuracy and eligibility, whatever amount of funds are going to be available for supplemental awards will be divided amongst those needs and requests of those eligible applicants. And the hope, the understanding is that businesses will receive a supplemental award of some amount. We don't know. So we don't know if it's 10%, 30%, or what it will be, but it will be, again, based upon available funds. And then going forward for kind of flood recovery programming, I don't think we know exactly what the future holds, but it does appear like there will be, proposals for a program, permanent flood recovery program that may be, given kind of some of the fraudulent kind of applications that were submitted is not based on kind of a stimulus payment, but continuing to have some burden of proof and some documentation of loss. But I think more to come on that front as we get into legislative session and see what's in the governor's recommend, and then conversations that happen within the legislature. But it does appear that there's both some remaining resources and a collective desire to see a permanent flood response and recovery program.
Thank you. This is very, very useful, and it's more than a mouthful. The data that you presented, Nina, is just very broad spectrum, and I was just kind of absorbed all of it. But this is very, very good work. It's very telling. For example, I was reading some of the commentary that people are making about their intentions about using parts of their land. Seems to be a major shift. Absolutely, aligning with what I felt like would happen with people moving from, farming their bottomland. And that big switch, I don't know how that's going to impact the future of crop farming in Vermont. There's lots of technology that we've been advancing, at least in my shop, that can substitute for that. But it's interesting, all of this is happening. And thanks, Abby, for adding the commentary on the supplements. Any questions or comments? I want to invite a little bit of conversation on this before we go to any update that Bill might want to bring from NOFA. All right. Doesn't seem to be any comments at this point. Nina, thank you again for this. This is much appreciated. Is this where is this publication normally put? Is it on the website? I know there are going to be a couple of students that ask me about it. They know I'm working with the disaster workforce task force. Is this going to be on the website?
I can
at some
definitely
point?
PDF the slides, and as long as Nicole and Abby were okay sharing the preliminary BGAP data, I'm happy to help get those up on our website. And Eileen, whatever you can share from your end, I think we should also add to the website just to make this information available, if that's okay with the parties.
This meeting is recorded, so the recording will go up, and then we can also put the supplemental documentation there.
Okay. All right. Thanks so much.
Yeah,
All right,
all I
thanks
would
again.
say about the BGAP is just that like it's still in process, so we just might want to
Yeah.
put a date on kind of
Yeah.
the status of the BGAP awards as we will be finalizing them and the numbers will change a little bit as a result. But yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Alright.
certainly the
Sure.
same with the FSA numbers.
All right. All right, thanks. Let's move to Bill for an update from NOFA. If you have one, Bill, I suspect you do.
Yeah, I don't have much prepared. I kind of just filling in for Grace real quick. So I'll give you guys a quick overview. My part of my work is I run our Farmer Emergency Fund. So 23 and 24 spent a lot of time just talking with farmers. We did our own sort of very preliminary survey. I think most anything I have to share would just be sort of like anecdotally supporting everything that Nina has already like put real data to. So just seeing a lot of infrastructure damage on farms this time around. A lot of maple producers have been getting in touch, just seeing a lot of down trees, washed out culverts, things like that. For 2024, for our Farmer Emergency Fund, and I won't go into the details unless anyone has questions about the details of it, but suffice it to say, we have a pretty low I won't say low effort, but low, pretty easy application for our emergency funds. We have 51 total emergency fund awards for 2024 for a total of 197,000, which is just in comparison to 23. In 23, we made 217 awards for a total of a little over 1 million. So sort of bearing out that it's not quite the same scale that we saw in the flooding in 23. But definitely something that's we're still seeing a lot of impact from farmers. Again, just a lot of infrastructure stuff, a lot of mental health stuff. I think this time around, I've been making a lot of referrals to Farm First and just sort of talking with folks, around a lot of stress. And on the business planning side of things, sort of wearing my business planner hat, having a lot of conversations with farmers around changing their land base, diversifying their land base. A lot of farmers are not necessarily moving, but they are looking for different land where they could sort of diversify. They want to keep their bottom land because it's really productive, but they also want to find somewhere where they can stick some crops, not in any risk of flood. So that's been a really ongoing conversation with a lot of folks. And yeah, I'll leave it at there. I mean, I don't have a ton really prepared. I am working on our sort of internal task force around some recommendations on the policy side for, a more sort of standing emergency fund. As Abby sort of alluded to, I'm not in any place to give an update on that. Hopefully we'll have some stuff together as that comes, but that's been really productive and just kind of working with a lot of different folks to sort of put some thoughts into that. So hopefully we'll have something more on that soon.
Okay, Will, thank you so much. Any responses or thoughts, Nina?
Bill, do you mind just speaking a little bit about the resilience program that you guys are, and how you see it connected compared to the Farmer Emergency Fund?
Yes. Yeah, I've been out of that one for a little while, so I can't speak to necessarily this year's details, but in general, our resilience grant program came out of like early days of COVID. We were just sort of like, we've got some money. We want to sort of help farmers just be resilient. And it sort of morphed into this program. The idea is it's, again, a very, very low impact sort of application. It's not a massive amount of money. I want to say it's $2,500. But the idea there is that it's farmers can sort of define for themselves what they need to make upgrades and changes on their farm to be more resilient. And that could mean a lot of things. It could be flood resilience. It could be drought resilience. It could be, really, you name it. That is open currently. I'm sorry, I don't have a lot of the details on that. I know it's open currently, and I think it goes through probably mid to late January. But yeah, I've been encouraging folks to apply to that as much as they can, because it's, pretty simple, pretty straightforward, and it's a good way to do, catalyze a little bit of an impact. It's certainly not a massive grant, but it does help.
Nina, could I go back to an issue I saw? I want to ask a quick question. What do you think, if you know, or anybody else might know this, accounts for the significant difference between the assessments in terms of losses immediately after a disaster versus the what's the claims look like? Even I'm noticing a threefold difference between those two things. On the lower end, what happens right after a disaster, and the higher end, what the actual claims?
My guess, Roy, and this is really a personal assumption, is that immediately following an event, what a farm can pretty easily guess, right, is their crop losses. Like they lost a field of sweet potatoes, and they can estimate the potential losses from that. But what we have observed is, by the time you get a quote for someone to come out and assist with field repair, you tend to develop a much deeper understanding of the costs to repair and remediate your fields that have been had essentially soil and land damage. That's my personal assumption, but I'm sure others may have other thoughts on that question.
I'm thinking to myself that when we respond to, I'm very, very careful. I might caveat this quite a bit. Is that when they ask about what damages are immediately, the media is always interested in that. I don't want to go and say, it's currently at this amount, but it could be 3 times higher, and stick my foot in my mouth when I talk to the media about that. So I don't know if this is. Go ahead.
The only other thing to add about those figures, Roy, is the total losses reported through BGAP are essentially supported by documentation. And when we run a survey, we're asking for an individual respondent to share their general information without documentation. So I wouldn't be surprised if we continue to see a similar trend in that, total losses reported based on survey versus documentation. Once you sit down and pull everything together, things tend to add up quickly.
Okay. Jill?
It would be interesting to analyze that for 2023, but that wasn't really my question. Bill, I'm thinking of you as a business planner. Does the business planner community have some sort of checklist or that they might offer farmers when considering losses, such as not only your crop, but sort of future production estimates, just like a cheat sheet that might remind them of things to take into consideration, might be helpful in this kind of a situation? Maybe you already have that. I'm just curious about it.
No, that's a really good point. I think in a lot of cases, as planners, we tend to sort of be the cheat sheet. I don't know if there is actually like anything published or sort of passed around out there, but that is a really good idea. One of the things, and it's not
to get them started, because you get them started, and then they may have more data ready when you come to meet with them.
Totally, yeah, absolutely. And this is kind of an aside, but we are, we have our organic practices team now at NOFA, and we are working on building out a large sort of business plan template around climate resilience in general. So really kind of focusing on that in terms of the business plan, which isn't necessarily what you're talking about, but it is something where we are trying to integrate more of this stuff, because it has a major impact on business planning for sure.
Abby?
Yeah, I just wanted to jump back to an additional response around your question, Roy, of why the 3 times the total damages. So one piece that I wanted to note is the total number of soon after the flood event recipients was 86, and that's ironically the exact number of new ag applications submitted. So again, I think we can assume from that it may not exactly be the same 86 businesses, but it's not that many more businesses applied for BGAP than had applied or responded with their estimated damages to the survey. It's about the same number of businesses. So the difference is that they originally estimated the 86 businesses originally estimated about 5.5 million in damages, and it ended up being, closer to 13, 14 million. So yeah, if nothing else, I think we can assess that businesses found it possible to complete an ag survey following a disaster, and they underestimated what their losses were.
Yeah.
Then when they had a few more months through the remainder of the growing season to be able to look at what the total crop loss cost was, or infrastructure value lost, and that was then what they were able to include in their application for
Yeah.
BGAP.
Right. Thank you. That is a reasonable way to look at this. Appreciate that. All right. Any other comments or updates from anybody? And I noticed that Ben joined us. I'm not sure if you have a thought or an update you might want to give. And Nicole, do you want to say something?
I think Ben will probably say it, but I just want to acknowledge before we end that John and Ben, this is probably their last meeting with us. So
Yeah.
go ahead, Ben.
Oh, thank you. So it's good to see you all. And I am retiring on Friday afternoon. And so this is my last time seeing a lot of you, I guess, at least in this context. And I've been pretty scarce at these meetings for the last several months. And just dropping in today and listening to the brief outs, I'm so impressed and so grateful for the work that the various members and partners of this task force have done. You really have been a model task force, and credit to Nicole, credit to Roy, credit to all of you for stepping up to do what you can with the tools available for farmers. I don't yet know who will be my replacement as recovery section chief at Vermont Emergency Management. We're interviewing some good people right now. That'll probably drag out beyond my departure with background checks and so forth. But eventually, VEM will be back in this mix, and hopefully there won't be events which cause this group to be as active as it has been in the past 2 years. But I really have appreciated your work and trust that VEM, Vermont Emergency Management, will continue to partner with all of your agencies for future events. And yeah, thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, Ben. I'm sure that there are others here who will agree with me that you've served well, and they'll have more words of appraisal than that. But appreciate your efforts as well. Jill, I'm going to give you that question, and then I'm going to give the last half a minute to John.
Okay.
Jill, you're mute. You're muted still.
I was just going to give a quick update from the conservation district. So the districts are do basically outreach. They respond to inquiries and they provide technical assistance that would be associated with assessments or conservation planning needed. It varies across the state. We are trying to collect a little more specific information regionally. And then VACD, as requested, we've done some collaboration with FSA on assessments using our drone program. So I just wanted to provide those quick updates. Thanks.
Thank you for that.
And I wanted to thank Nina and Marley for the technical assistance guidebook or whatever it is really a fabulous resource.
Yeah. absolutely. John, we are 10, but you have the last word.
Well, thank you, Roy. This has been, being in this role as state director has been an honor and a privilege. It's been very interesting. Many of you know me for a very long time, being part of Vermont Ag, and I actually intend to keep my toe in the water. I'm setting up a consultancy firm. And if I get calls, I will hopefully be able to keep assisting farmers in navigating state and federal regulations, helping them, with the tedious task of bettering their operations. Thank you to everybody. And thank you, Ben. It's been amazing to see you, from, I think it was the Green Mountain Club in the past. I first interacted with you. So good luck and have fun. I'm hoping my wife and I are hoping to travel a bit more. So I'm not looking for a full-time job. But hopefully I will interact with many of you. And also Jill is, I don't know quite, you're not retiring for a little while, but I think the time is getting close when you're retiring. So it's been a pleasure
Yes,
working
I'm
with
moving
you.
in that direction.
Yeah, and it's been a pleasure working with you, Jill.
Thank you.
Anyway, very happy holidays to all of you. And I am sure Vermont is way too small, and agriculture is a pretty unique group of people. I am sure we will be bumping into each other. So thank you.
John, we stayed on just to listen to that. Thank you. You've been a friend and a mentor to me since I got here in 2021. I really appreciate all the support, help, and guidance that you've provided me at various levels before you went to FSA. So thanks, and I think we're well overdue here. It's almost 4 minutes past 10. If you have any words for John, by all means, reach out to him. I know there are ways to do this. There's lots of commentary on LinkedIn as well, where I'm pretty active. John, folks are really, really appreciative of your efforts there. So reach out to John, and thanks everybody for being here and for for pulling this together and keeping us on track. And Nicole, thanks for your good work. And I know you can't speak well today, but if